Welcome to Club Bed. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. So what we do on these sessions is we have a little sleep subliminal on in the background to help us get to sleep. And we also try to do something productive with it, which is to talk about something of substance. Or I might choose something so boring, I'll try to bore you to sleep. And that might happen tonight because we're going to talk about the Hermetic Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. I was sitting here trying to figure out, where do I start? Where do I bring you? Where do I trace this back to? And then I thought, last night, we were talking about the Magician card. We were talking about a character that I believe existed, named Hermes Trismegistus. The guy who's in the Magician card, who Arthur Edward Waite, who made the tarot deck, he and Pamela Coleman Smith, who did the brilliant images. He fashioned the magician after this character. And in fact, Hermes may have lived before Moses, around about the time of Moses. So just to, for those of you, because I know that there are some young people listening. I know that one of our subscribers, Maya, I don't know if she's listening tonight, but I think that her daughter or her children may listen as well. So just to position you in history, and what I'm about to say is of no particular religion. In fact, Moses is mentioned in the Quran, in the Old Testament, Jews, people who embrace the Quran, Christians, people from all different types of religions draw upon history, because that's really what we're talking about here. What we have pieced together historically. And this relates to the Tree of Life, because the question is, where does this come from? Yes, the Jews, the Jewish people, do embrace the Tree of Life, and a lot of the tarot deck is based on Kabbalistic tarot, is based on Jewish tradition, but there's an awful lot of Islamic tradition in tarot. There is a lot of Greek mythology, which I'm going to be weaving into Aquarius's next reading. Because in Greek mythology, they didn't just have one god, they had a ton of gods and goddesses. But in Egypt, there were many religious places of worship for many people, of many varieties of religions. And archaeologists and theologists and all sorts of people who study history as it relates to buildings and structures and deities and religious beliefs. These are simply people who study what can we piece together, what were people believing back then. I would never push my beliefs on anyone, other than basic things like don't hurt anyone. But anyway, just to give you, for the young people listening, a little bit of structure in terms of time. Are you getting sleepy already? Are you bored to death? So you may hear people using acronyms like BC or AD or AM or CE or BCE. Well, I'm going to simplify all of that for you right now. In your mind, what I'd like you to do at your navel, okay, at your belly button, consider that to be 0. Your belly button looks like a 0 anyway, so let's call that year 0. And let's call your belly button the year that Jesus of Nazareth was born, okay? Now, when you move up your body from your belly button up, the years will increase, okay? So let's say that the year that Jesus of Nazareth was born is year 0, okay? Now, in the era from that point onward up to the time that we're living this year, this is called Common Era, or CE, stands for Common Era. It's also called, there's a funny Latin phrase called Anno Domini or Anno Domino, AD. You may see, if you're signing an important legal paper in front of a lawyer, you may see AD. That simply means after Christ was born, from year 0 onward to today, onward forward. So CE is the era that we're living in, Common Era, after Christ was born. It's also called Anno Domino, AD. AD is the same thing as CE, is the same thing as right now, the era that we're living in. Okay, so we have that. So let's go back to our belly button. That's year 0. Now we're going to go down your body. But the numbers are going to go up as we go down, back in time. And as we go back in time from 0, further back in time, way, way, way before Jesus of Nazareth was born, the numbers go up again. So in other words, 40 years before Jesus of Nazareth was born, we're going to call that 40 BC, or before Christ, or BCE. It means the same thing, before Common Era. All means the same thing, or Anno Mundi. So Anno Mundi and BC and BCE all mean the same thing. It just means before Jesus Christ was born, or Jesus of Nazareth. So it's year 0 and back in time. But so the strange thing is, from year 0 back in time, the numbers go up. From year 0 forward in time, the numbers go up. So now you understand what BC means. Now, why is this important? Because in the tarot deck, we see the temple that King Solomon built. It shows up, for example, in the High Priestess card. And it is an extremely important structure in the Tree of Life. So that's why we have to talk about it. When was it built? Let me bring you back again, okay? In the Islamic traditions, in the Quran and in the Jewish tradition, what you'll see is a major focus, not on Jesus, but on a person named Moses. Now, Moses was way before Jesus, okay? So let me give you some references now, so you can, in your head, you can have this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start way, 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 way back in time, and I'm going to move forward to present day, okay? So I'm going to start below your belly button. Let's call your feet Anno Mundi. Let's call it let's go back to 2,666 years before Christ was born, or BCE, or BC, or Anno Mundi. They all mean the same. So there is an important year, 2,666 BCE, or BC, or Anno Mundi means the same thing. And that was when the Torah was received at Mount Sinai. So, that is when Spirit donated or gave to us the Torah, all right? So between that time and 1,000 years before Christ was born, so as you can tell, if we move from 2,666 up to 1,000 BCE, we're coming forward in time, okay? As we get closer to zero, we get closer to the time when Jesus Christ was born. So the first temple in Jerusalem was built by King Solomon, okay, in around about, we think, 1,000 years before Christ was born, or BC, or BCE, or Anno Mundi. All right? Now, so poor old Moses was long dead from then, okay, because Moses, sometime after the year 2666, okay, Moses led the Israelites, or the Jews, okay, he helped them get out of Egypt, and he brought them into Israel because they were being treated very badly by the Egyptians, okay. So that is where you get the story of the Red Sea being parted, etc., etc. So it was about 480 years after Moses did this that the first temple was built, okay, by King Solomon. And that's around about 1000 BCE. So in other words, at the time that Moses was living, there was no temple at all. It had never even been built. All right? So he led the Israelites, or the Jews, out of Egypt. They formed Israel, and after Moses died, hundreds of years after he died, King Solomon built the first temple. And so the Jewish tradition is very much focused on Moses and people that lived before Moses and after Moses, and King Solomon, Abraham. There's all sorts of characters that are important. So that first temple was destroyed because Jerusalem kept getting, people kept coming in and the siege of Jerusalem, they call it, destroyed during the siege. And that happened. The first temple was torn down. It lasted about 400 to 500 years, the first temple. So 589 years BCE. So that's about 400 years after the first temple was born, when 1000 BCE, it was destroyed. The Egyptians came in and destroyed it, okay? So the Jews just couldn't get away from the bloody pharaohs and the Egyptians. Anyway, so for about 50 years, from 589 BCE up to about 539 BCE, so we're coming forward in time, there was no temple. There just wasn't a temple. So for 50 years, there was no temple built. And then there was a good king, okay, who was ruling around about the year 539, and he made a decree that the Jews could rebuild their temple. So it was rebuilt. The second temple was rebuilt 539 years before Christ was born, okay? Now, so it lasted, can you imagine? So when Christ was born, that temple was 539 years old. That's how well built it was. It was still around when he was there. Now, all during the time that Jesus Christ was living, the second temple existed in Jerusalem. So all the stories that you hear about Jesus being in the temple, that was the second temple, okay? Now, poor old Jesus only lived to about 30 years of age. He was put to death, arrested, and put to death in a horrible way. By Jews, really. Anyway, so the temple, that second temple lasted about 50 years after Jesus was put to death. So The second temple was destroyed in 70 CE, or Common Era, in the era that we're living in. So it was, the second temple was standing when Jesus Christ was crucified. It lasted another 50 years, and then it was destroyed by the Romans. Okay, if Jerusalem wasn't being sieged by the Egyptians, it was being sieged by the Romans. Same thing, really. But anyway, now, does the third temple really exist? It doesn't. Only in our minds. The Jews hold this hope out that a third temple will be rebuilt. They're waiting for Moses to come back or somebody. They don't, the Jews don't put a lot of emphasis on Jesus Christ. They're mostly focused on Moses. So anyway, here's my point. That temple is very important. Now, in Jerusalem, if for anyone who has visited Jerusalem and gone to the Wailing Wall, there is a part of the second temple still standing, and it's called the Wailing Wall. So you can look up on the internet what's left of that temple. It's quite incredible. Anyway, so now let's get back to the Tree of Life. Are you getting sleepy? Are you getting very, very sleepy? We're listening to a theta wave, by the way, to help put you to sleep. If you aren't bored to tears by what we're already talking about. So that is a very sort of rudimentary structure for yourself. So the Old Testament focuses on things that happened before Jesus was born. So the Old Testament focuses on Moses and before the time of Moses and after Moses died. And the New Testament focuses on all the things that Jesus did. And the main difference is, I'm really overgeneralizing here, but I'm just doing it for the sake of anyone who's really young who's listening. The main differences is that Moses was very focused on the 10 Commandments. Now, it's very old-fashioned, and people are always throwing into my face, but part of the 10 Commandments was, the tarot card readers or fortune tellers were, well, yeah, but how many times have you heard me say I don't do futures? I don't fortune tell. I like doing present energies. I think that tarot is great for picking up on present energies. I don't believe that we should rely on them either for futures because, well, you've heard my reasoning on that. I won't go into it anymore because this is not about me and what I believe. But anyway, but Jesus, part of the reason why he was put to death was they were accusing him of not accepting the 10 Commandments, and he kept defying everything that Moses said. For example, a woman was accused of having cheated on her husband, and they dragged her into the temple and brought her before Jesus, and they said she cheated on her husband, so we're supposed to stone her. And I've got a video on this on my channel that I told the story about how Jesus reacted. This was very close to the time he was about to be arrested and put to death because he kept defying the 10 Commandments. I'm not promoting what Jesus did or said, but I'm just trying to point out the difference between the Jews and the Christians in a very general way. And Jesus said, well, is that right? Is that so? This woman cheated on her husband? All right. And so the 10 Commandments say that we're supposed to stone her to death. Okay. All right then. And he was in the temple. And apparently he was writing in the sand. And he was literally trying to ignore these people who had dragged this poor woman in and said, she cheated on her husband. She cheated on her husband. And Jesus stood up, apparently, and he said, I'll tell you what, if we're supposed to stone her, then the person who is in this temple right now, who has lived a life of no mistakes, of no sin, this person will be allowed to begin stoning this woman. And there was silence in the temple, and the men were ashamed of themselves, and they, one by one, they left, beginning with the oldest, the wisest. So, and then he spoke to her briefly, and he helped her escape. Now, so Jesus was a feminist, I believe, but anyway, from the information that we have. But so he broke a lot of rules. He broke almost every single commandment, and he was put to death for that. So if you're listening to this now and you're a young person and you ever get challenged about, if someone says, oh, you're talking religion, you say, excuse me, no, I'm talking history. These things can be proven. There are historical texts. I'm not pushing my beliefs on you. I'm pushing historical, substantive knowledge that I have. That's what you say, okay? Don't ever let anyone push you into a corner and say that you're promoting religion. Just call it history, and that'll shut them up. Anyway, now, so let's go back to the tree of life, all right? So now that you have this timeline in your head, where did the tree of life, the whole idea of the tree of life, begin? Probably before Moses. I believe that it began around about the time that Hermes Trismegistus lived. He was Egyptian. And so I'm thinking that it was around about, actually it could be after Moses, come to think of it. Anyway, the reason why I think that I'm picking 1500 BCE, no, it could have been way before that though. But anyway, what we do know is that Hermes, who could have been Moses, by the way, but anyway, Hermes had written down so that some kind of workable language was being used at the time that Hermes Trismegistus lived, because we have a text, as I mentioned the other night, that it's in Arabic, which was transcribed from ancient, which was transcribed from Hebrew, which was transcribed from ancient Greek, that one of the first languages that existed, and it, i.e. Sanskrit, which is where all of the this is how old the tree of life is, okay? So and so are the ideas of these energy centers for the chakras, because each chakra has a name in Sanskrit. So you know that when you see us using the tarot cards on all the videos, that a lot of people talk about the 22 major arcana, okay? Starting with card 0, which is the Fool, which is Aquarius, and then it goes all the way up to card number 21, which is the World. But because the Fool doesn't have a number, we actually have 22 major arcana. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and there are 22 pathways on the tree of life. There are 10 important points on the tree of life, but what you'll see if you Google the tree of life, you'll see the 10 points and you'll see 22 pathways. You will see 2 pillars. The pillar of mercy, which is on your right hand, you will match it up with your right hand, and the pillar of severity, which if you reach out with your left hand, you'll hit that, okay? Now, how does this line up with the temple in Jerusalem? Well, the pillar of mercy, the white pillar, which has things like point number 7 on it, the chariot, Netzah, That's the Pillar of Mercy. That was a white pillar on the very first temple in Jerusalem. And it was called Jachin. And the Pillar of Severity, which is on the left side of the Tree of Life, was the black pillar that King Solomon put on the front of the temple, and that was called Boaz. So the Tree of Life is very much connected to the temple. The very first temple in Jerusalem. The second temple was built just like it, to be identical to it. We don't have it standing anymore. We just have it in our hearts and minds that it will come back. Well, some people do anyway. So each of the 22 major arcana tarot cards, they snap in to the Tree of Life. So when Arthur Edward Waite made the deck, which was fairly recent, it was in 1909, I believe, that he and Pamela Coleman Smith, or 1926 it might have been, I'm not sure, very, very, very early 1900s, the Rider Waite deck was published, the first edition, and it is very much based on the Tree of Life, okay, which ties in with the Temple of Jerusalem. And so much of the major arcana, there's so much symbolism that relate to Moses and Christianity and Jesus of Nazareth, mostly Moses, though, that you kind of need to fall back on. Pretty much everything that I've just said will give you a good, really good workable framework to fit all your tarot knowledge into. So let's start with the top level, and we're going to clear our root chakra and our sacral chakra while we talk about the top level. So at the very top of the Tree of Life is the most important thing. It's the crown. We call it Keter, or spirit. It is God. Okay, now in the Jewish tradition, you call God Hashem. Okay. It's spirit. I just like to call it spirit. Okay. And below that is the very first level where we just have archetypes. So in other words, we have the ideals. We have the Fool, which doesn't like to take a number. We have Hakma, which is where the magician stands, the great father. And Bina, the great mother, where the high priestess stands. So we have cards 0, 1, and 2. 1 is the magician, 2 is the high priestess. So if you think of your root chakra, and it's funny because I don't think of we're talking about Keter, but I think that our root chakra is really one of the most important, if not the most important chakra to have clear, because it grounds you. It's your whole stability is dependent on that root chakra. So you can start picturing it now near the base of your spine, that beautiful ruby red color swirling around in a counterclockwise direction, pulling the energy of Keter. And I always like to think of unconditional love as being spirit or God. And when I'm clearing my chakras, I think of the center of the earth. I think of a warm caramel lava-like unconditionally loving energy being drawn up from the center of the earth. It detects the bottoms of your feet once you put your feet on the ground. And it is drawn up into your body, right into your feet, creeping into your ankles and your calves and your knees and your thighs and your hips and all your internal organs, your stomach and your rib cage, your chest area, your shoulders, and it reaches out to your fingertips, runs back up your arm, up through your neck, and all over the top of your head. So now you've infused yourself with unconditional love with Keter. And now move up to your sacral chakra, which is the orange, amber, beautiful colored area between your two hip bones. And allow that to spin or swirl in a counterclockwise direction. So now you've got that top level done in your body. So on the tree of life, if we move down to the next level, we've got the 4s, the 5s, and the 6s. So on the side that the magician was on the merciful side, the white pillar, he stands at point number 2, believe it or not. It's because the fool won't take a number. So the fool is 0. So Chakra is where the magician is. Now the magician is card number 1, but anyway, he stands as the great father. Now, if you go below Chakra, right in the middle pillar, you get to an energy called Dot. D-A''A''T. And what it is it's a focus of energy. So it's when you're really focusing hard on something. You get spirit coming from Keter. It goes to the Great Father, to Chakra, where the magician is, to give the initial spark of an idea. Goes over to the high priestess, who's also on that top level, Binah, to develop it, the analytical mind, and then she projects it to Dot, so that someone puts their attention on it, focuses on it, concentrates on it to develop the idea. And then we're on the second level, as I said, where the 4s, the 5s, and the 6s are. The 4th point is Chesed. And the 6th point is the 5th point is over on the severe side, Gevura, where all the 5s are, the 5 of cups, the 5 of swords. The 5s are testers, the 5 of wands, static. The 5 of swords, the 5 of cups, the 5 of pentacles, loss. It's a very, very challenging energy. It's called the tester. And then we go back to 6, which is in the middle, which is love, Tiferet. That's where all the kings are. The kings of the deck lie at Tiferet. So number 6, Tiferet, that's where the 6s are too. The 6 of cups, the 6 of swords, the 6 of pentacles. So at this point, I think it's probably a good idea to look at our solar plexus. And I thought, the solar plexus is right above your sacral chakra, right above the orange. Here's your little miniature sun, okay, between your rib cage. So you can start picturing your miniature sun. And I thought that we might talk about the Sun Tarot card to clear this chakra. So on the Sun Tarot card, you'll remember there's a naked boy looking like he just jumped out of the bath and is running around the house. When you were a kid, and you jump out of the bath, and run around like a little renegade, and everyone would say, grab a towel, stop jumping up in front of the window and everything. Well, it's freedom, that the nudity of the child represents, yay, being free. I can do whatever I want to do. That's what the nudity represents. The horse, the white horse, believe it or not, represents solar energy. The red flag, that beautiful thing that's flying in the wind, that is passion, or the vibration of fire, of Mars force. It's a card of Leo after all. And if you look carefully at this card, you'll see that the sun has these weird mixture of rays. Some of them are straight, and some of them are kind of squiggly. And they're supposed, these alternating rays, these different types of rays, are supposed to represent the alchemical marriage between the rays of the sun and the moon. So they alternate between radiating and vibrating. So it's supposed to create a very, very, very high polarity. The combination of radiation and vibration is supposed to be very, very, very powerful. All right, so that's your sun. I think we have that cleared. So let's move now. We're moving up to our heart chakra. All right. It's probably a good place to talk about Tiferet, because we spoke about that a moment ago. You know, we're always talking about the Lover's Tarot card and the Six of Cups. The Lover's Tarot card is the major arcana card number 6. Tiferet is point number 6. The Six of Cups is the card of the twin flame, you know. It's also a card of the past. It's Sun in Scorpio. So this point on the tree of life, any sixes is in tarot is associated with this. And so the major and minor arcana, anything with the number 6 on it goes to Tiferet. It has to do with the ability of us to empathize. And the sixes are supposed to be, you know, the most beautiful card of every suit. The best, you know, version is the 6. The only thing I don't agree with there in the Rider-Waite deck, the 6 of Pentacles is not a good card. So, you know, even in its upright, I just don't agree with readers who say that it's a good card of evening things out. I don't see it that way. The man in that card is clearly cheating. Anyway, that's a matter of opinion. So, to clear our heart chakra, the ability to empathize with others, I always think of this cute little promo that I saw of a dog that was, they were trying to, it was an unpopular dog, an unpopular breed. And in the city that I was living in at the time, somebody was trying to figure out how to get somebody to adopt the dog. So they knit the dog a little sweater, a green sweater. And green is the color of your heart chakra. And before we knew it, somebody had adopted this very unpopular dog, and it was a good dog. Actually, that dog later became a therapy dog. So it was of a breed that doesn't have a good reputation. So, but the dog was used for such that people were so ill. This therapy dog was brought into a hospital. It was that the people who, you know, the dog was comforting just didn't notice the breed of the dog. We used to dress him up a little bit, so you know, and use different names for his breed, so no one really knew what kind of a dog it was. Anyway, so let's move up to our throat chakra. Trying to think of a good point on the tree of life too. How about hood? So the 8, the 8s of anything. So the strength card, which is major arcana card number 8, the 8 of pentacles, the 8 of wands, the 8 of cups, the 8 of swords. These are all related to hood, H-O-D, on the tree of life. So hood has to do with your ability to submit to a higher cause, to be grateful, to have some humility, to be thankful, to be devoted to somebody, to be accommodating. I always think of the, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Wimbledon, but there's a cute little sort of friendship that the tennis star in the main character in the movie, not the woman but the man, has with the ball boy who what he does is he collects, you know, the renegade balls and brings them back. And the main character in that movie, he was having trouble getting his motivation. He was, almost ready to retire, and everyone said, "Oh, he'll never win." And he just been rejected he fell in love with this other tennis star, and her father didn't think he was good enough to go out with her. And so he was playing one of his last games, and it was do or die type thing. And he was really down. He was playing against a much younger, more fit, more popular player. And the other player does something unfair, and it causes a ball to hit the ball boy very, very hard and injure this little kid. And then the star, the main character gets angry, and so he puts all his frustration and he wins the game, just a slam dunk win, and of course ends up winning the whole thing. And then of course, he gets the girl in the end, is really happy, but the idea is the energy of wanting to serve someone else and being humble. It's that ball boy had it all. He was just so in awe of this great tennis star that he got to collect, the scattered tennis balls for him. That's the energy of Hood. Okay, where are we on the tree? On our bodies. We did the throat chakra. We're going up to the intuition chakra. I was thinking we could talk about the high priestess here because she's all about intuition. Now, she's on the very top of the tree, like we have already talked about her. So let's talk about her anyway. So she sits between these two pillars in that tarot card. She's supposed to be sitting between Boaz and Jachin. They call her the unattainable woman. She doesn't speak in tarot. She's a very unusual character. She does not speak, but she has all the knowledge. She has the conscious knowledge of the past, present, and future, the subconscious knowledge, memories, music, science, everything. She's got it all, but she doesn't speak. In her lap, she holds a scroll, which, clearly it's marked Torah. So, the deck is very, very heavily skewed towards the Jews just love tarot because it's all, it's very heavily based on Judaism. And the Islamics love tarot as well. Anyone who believes in the Quran loves tarot because Waite was so in awe, and so am I, actually. The whole idea of karmic justice, and stories about Moses, the Quran captures it so well. While we're on that, why don't we quote the Quran here? So she sits between two pillars. She rules the moon. The moon, in fact, was given to her, was granted to her. She owns the moon. But the moon doesn't affect her. She sits between these two energies that are so powerful. She's unaffected. She is considered to be the wisest character apart from spirit in the entire deck. Now, if you had, the other day I was doing a tarot card reading for someone who was on one of the lives, and I think she might have been a card reader herself, because I noticed from the title of her, her little code name, that I didn't look it up after, but it looked like she was a card reader. And the way she was talking, she wasn't saying much, but I could tell that she was just, I do this occasionally. I do like to know what other people, there is one card reader that actually lives in the same city that I do, and occasionally, once every 4 years, when I'm really frustrated about something, I'll go see her. But so I know what she was doing. She was just double checking something. But anyway, her card, she came up as the high priestess, and the person she was asking about came up as the magician. I mean, that is the power couple of the century right there. But anyway, so I don't know who, now the Fool is on a completely other level, because the Fool has bravery that is unknown to any human being, to be able to carry the energy from spirit straight from God to Chakra. Nobody else would be able to do that. But anyway, the point is, any character in tarot that sits between two pillars, they are guarding a massive amount of knowledge. So, for example, the Justice card, which is the major arcana card of Libra, that person sits between two pillars. And that card is all about karmic justice. And some of the best quotes about karmic justice come from the Quran. I'm just going to quote chapter, it's 17, verse 13 of chapter 17 of the Quran. Allah produces a record at your death. Allah does not wish suffering on anyone. And the followers of Allah do not seek suffering as a form of spiritual discipline, neither do they wish suffering on each other. But the idea, and that's the end of the quote, now that's very loosely translated, okay? But the idea, there's several references to karmic justice in the Quran, and they all relate to Moses, to the stories about Moses. For example, God or Spirit, Hashem sent Moses to go see the Pharaoh's helpers, or his cohorts in Egypt, and he was treated very, very badly by them. But when you read on in the Quran to see what happened to them as a result of them treating Moses so badly, I've picked two quotes here. So Moses was sent to speak to the Pharaoh in Egypt, but they were unjust toward Moses. So see how was the end of those who were unjust. Similar situations have passed on before you, so proceed throughout the earth and observe how was the end of those who acted so. So the idea is not that you will be punished or judged, just that when you choose to be cruel, observe what happens to those who, it's a whole idea of that judgment and punishment are created by your own bad actions. It is so much more advanced than the Christian concept of it. That this is where the Quran is way ahead of Christianity. Anyway, are you getting very, very sleepy? Some of you have probably already fallen asleep. As you can see, if any of the young people are still listening, the tarot deck, if you go right through and study the tarot deck, you can't help but pick up on a lot of history, archaeology, Greek mythology, you'll learn all sorts of different types of religions, and philosophy. There's a lot of philosophy and a lot of wisdom. And what you will find if you're a woman is that the tarot deck is very feminist. I mean, the Lover's card, it's forget Adam and Eve. It has nothing to do with that. The woman in the Lover's card is the hero there because she's looking to spirit to say, is this man spiritually correct? And he's kind of the dodo head that's standing lusting after her body. So it's, it is very progressive for something that was created in the early 1900s. There's nothing sexist about tarot at all. So I don't think if you're one of these, if you're doing women's studies or anything and you think you would be turned off by it, I don't think you would be turned off by it at all. I think it would impress you, actually. So let's clear our crown chakra and bring the meditation to a close. Maybe we could talk about oh my goodness, the Chariot card. How about the Judgment card? Just trying to see where I put my notes on the Judgment card. I could go by what I remember. Anyway, well, the Judgment card, you'll see there's a family, a woman, a man, and a child who seem to be standing up in a coffin. And they have their arms in the air, and there's an angel coming down from the heavens blowing a very gorgeous looking trumpet. And so that's supposed to be an Archangel Gabriel. And the trumpet that he's blowing is supposed to be spiritual knowledge. It's sound. So for every major arcana card, there's a Hebrew letter associated with it. That in the Hebrew alphabet, there are 22 letters. In our alphabet, the English alphabet, there are 26. The Hebrew alphabet, there are 22. And there are only 22 major arcana cards. So as you can see, so this is the end of the major arcana, or nearing the end anyway. The World would be the last one before you go back to the Fool. But the Judgment card is nearing the end. And the Hebrew letter associated with this card is Shin, S-H-Y-N. It actually means poisoned tooth. But it also refers to a hymn, okay? In other words, you know what hymns are, the songs that people sing when they're communing with God or when they're in church. And you'll remember that the Sanskrit, which we talked about last night, is a language. And it was in existence around 1500 BCE. It was used between 1500 and 500 BCE. And there are a bunch of religious texts, T-E-X-T-S, that were written in Sanskrit. They're called Vedic Sanskrits or Vedas, okay? Now, in all of these Vedas, there are around about 20,000 mantras or sayings, okay? Now, one of the Vedas is called the Rig Veda, and it is made up of only songs, of hymns. And so this tarot card is said to be related to that because the trumpet, of course, is a song. And the whole point of the tarot card is that the whole, why are we, if you subscribe to materialism or what you can see, only what you can see, touch, hear, only what people can physically prove to you exists, that's really what materialism is based on. If that's all there is, then you're said to be a 3D person, unevolved. You think that it's all material. The only thing that matters is how much money you have, or do you have the right clothes, the right labels, etc. Do you have a nice house? That's all that matters, right? These are people who rely on materialism. Well, this card says, well, that's fine. If you believe that, then you're going to have to accept that when you're dead, you're gone. That's it. Because there are limitations to the material world. If you're going to subscribe to that, what it means is that you're going to have to accept the fact that the material world, when something isn't there, it isn't there. Well, of course, if you're into tarot, you probably don't believe that and don't accept that. Well, this card would agree with you there. It is the the archangel Gabriel, who blows the horn, that trumpet. He blows the horn of the esoteric, of spirit. And when he blows the horn, the man, woman, and child who were in their coffin before the music, they are raised out of their coffin, a seemingly impossible task. And the point of the card is that with spirit, all things are possible. All things are possible. And that's the whole idea of a miracle. And some people, they just don't accept that. And that's why Gabriel has to blast that horn so loudly. So that's a great place to leave off, because that is Keter, that's spirit, and we're at the top of your head. We're at that beautiful mauve colored chakra. And I know it's frustrating when you're trying to speak with someone who doesn't share your beliefs. Well, the best thing to do is just, forgive them for that, but hold on to your beliefs. Don't let anyone shake your faith. Have that unshakable faith and draw upon it. So what I'd like you to do right now is I'd like you to take about 10 seconds to make a wish. And don't allow your mind to say, oh, but, how's that going to happen? How's this going to happen? But how? No, forget the how. Don't worry about how. There's a plane going overhead. Before planes were in existence, if someone had said, in the future, we're going to have these planes, we're going to build a plane that can fly. Imagine how crazy people must have thought that was. Well, that was possible. We did that. So what I'd like you to do right now is to take 10 seconds out. If you could wave a magic wand and have one wish granted, what would it be? And I'd like you to just make that wish right now. Please, I'll give you 10 seconds, starting from right now. All right. And in 3 seconds, we're all going to say Amen in our minds, or you can say it out loud if you like. In your head or out loud is fine. 3, 2, 1. Amen. Amen really is just an expression of gratitude to Spirit. I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. You're getting very, very sleepy. You've done such good work tonight clearing your chakras and considering some of these things. You don't have to accept it. Everything that I've said tonight is based on a great deal of studying that I've done, though, so you're safe in tucking it away in your knowledge bank. If anything, it might make for good conversation sometime in the future if you're at a party or something, or if you meet a Jew that you find attractive. So I hope everyone has a wonderful night and a wonderful sleep. And as you're sleeping tonight, that miraculous thing that works from Keter, that hand of the Archangel Gabriel, he's just reaching down, wanting to grab that list, that wish that you wrote down on that piece of paper or had in your mind. Just picture him taking it right now. And he's so excited to go off and start working on manifesting that for you. So you don't have to think about how it's going to happen. And just go about your daily business tomorrow. But the great thing is right now we all get to sleep. We get to rest. And if you find it hard to fall asleep, just lie there and rest your body. Just rest your body, or you could listen to other things on YouTube. You have the freedom of this beautiful night now just to do whatever you want, to sleep or to do